Hello, my fantasticos. This is a review video of interpreting remainders, forgiving method, and the standard algorithm where does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers. Let's start with our riddle for this week. It says, in a one-story pink house, there was a pink person, a pink cat, a pink fish, a pink computer, a pink chair, a pink table, a pink telephone, a pink shower. Everything was pink. Later on, I'll tell you what the question is for the riddle, but this is the scenario that you'll have to think about. Alright, in this video, we're going to talk about how to interpret remainders. There are three different ways that we can interpret remainders, anyways, three big ways, which is round it, share it, or drop it. And these are some posters that will help you to understand the difference between all three. This is round it up. In other words, just round it. You can just think about round it. And it says, you round the remainder up when you have to make another group with a dividend. So for example, I said usually you have to make another group when you're dealing with people. Another one that you might have to do that with is animals or objects. Usually, for the most part, when you are dealing with people, animals, or objects, you can't split it very easily. People get mad if you don't include them. Animals will get mad if they're not included. So here's an example of when you might need to round it. It says 26 kids are going to the movies. 4 kids will fit in 1 car. How many cars are needed for all the kids? So this is 26 divided by 4 because you're splitting the 26 kids into cars, and 4 kids will fit in a car, so you're doing 26 divided by 4. You get a quotient of 6 and a remainder of 2. That basically means that there are 6 cars, and we know that if there are 6 cars and 4 kids in each car, that is 24 kids being taken care of. Well, there's 26 kids, so that means that remainder 2 is the 2 kids that are left over that aren't in a car. And we know that you can't leave them behind, so we have to get another car for them. So in other words, because we're dealing with people, we want to make sure that those people are happy, so we have to add another car, making the quotient 1 more. So we're going to round it up to 7 cars rather than just 6. Alright, let's take a look at another one. This is ignore it, also known as drop it. They both mean the exact same thing. It says you ignore the remainder when the groups have to be equal or a certain size. In other words, there's a maximum or a requirement. So I'm just going to write max or requirement involved. In other words, rounding up it would not work, and neither would share it. So let's take a look at an example of when you might need to drop the remainder or ignore the remainder, or essentially just kind of like throw it away. It says Jessica has 26 pieces of candy. She's dividing the candy into 4 treat bags. How much candy will go into each bag? Now she only has 4 treat bags. So she's going to put 26 pieces of candy into the bags, and she's going to make sure that the candy is evenly divided. So when she does 26 divided by 4, she gets a quotient of 6 and a remainder of 2. Those 6 pieces of candy will go into the bag, but then she's going to have 2 left over. Well, you're not going to round it up because to 7 pieces in a bag, because you're not going to have enough to fit in each treat bag. 7 times 4 is 28, and you only have 26 pieces of candy. So you cannot give 2 groups another piece. You're going to have to ignore the remainder or drop it off. You only have 4 treat bags, so you cannot add another treat bag either. So in this case, it's just going to be 6 pieces of candy in each bag, and then those 2 other pieces of candy would not belong. Another option that you have, this says record it as a decimal or a fraction. As I said before, that's the same thing as share it. Share it is when you're dealing with a fraction or a decimal, and we talked about how some of the most common is money, food, and measurement is typically the most common things that you can split into decimals or fractions. So for example, they even say writing it as a decimal when you're dealing with money. So if you have $1 left over, oftentimes you can split that into cents, like 50 cents and 50 cents. If you have like a cupcake left over, you might be able to split that in half or in quarters, which would be the fraction amounts. And the last one is the easiest one when you're interpreting remainders, because it's not really actually an interpreting of a remainder. It's just actually using the remainder. So I would like to call this just use it. They say focus on the remainder. It's just kind of simple. Just think about using it. So for example, the problem might ask you, how much will be left over after you split something into groups? And so you actually use the remainder. So if the answer was, for example, 5 remainder 6, then you would say 6 leftover cupcakes or whatever it is, 6 leftover apples. And then you would be done. You don't have to think about round it, share it, or drop it. Let's take a quick little break because I know some of you are already exhausted about interpreting remainders. Maybe you've already had to rewind it several times, and I completely understand. It is not an easy concept, definitely one of the hardest ones that we've covered so far. But let's take a look at our scenario because now I've actually got a question to go with it. It says in a one-story pink house, there was a pink person, a pink cat, pink fish, pink computer, pink chair, pink table, pink telephone, pink shower. Everything was pink. What color were the stairs? So think about what color the stairs were if everything was pink. Alright. Now, being that we've kind of talked about interpreting remainders, those top 3 choices of round it, share it, drop it, I'm going to take the quiz questions that you had last week and go through the solutions and how I was thinking about round it, drop it, or share it. It says Miss Taylor is purchasing pencils for her class of 25 students. She wants to give each student 2 pencils. So I know she has 25 students, and she wants to give each kid 2 pencils. That's 25 times 2, telling us that she's going to need 50 pencils. And that's actually step 1, because it never actually tells us how many pencils she's going to need. You have to calculate that. And that's 50 pencils. Well, now that you know you have 50 pencils, you have to divide them into packs of 6. So that's 50 divided by 6. I'm going to use the forgiving method, so I'm going to draw my vertical line down. And I'm going to say, okay, how many 6s go into 50? Or 6 times what gives me something close to 50 without going over? Well, I know that 6 times 8 is equal to 48. So I'm going to put 8 over to the right, and then multiply 6 times 8, which is equal to 48. And I'm going to subtract 50 minus 48. I'm going to have to do some borrowing. And I'm left with a difference of 2. Now I know that this difference of 2 is actually my remainder because the difference is less than my divisor, which is on the outside of my division symbol. So my answer is 8 remainder 2. But because this is a word problem, I have to go back and try and figure out what that means. It says how many packs does she need to give each student 2 pencils? Well, this essentially tells me that she's already bought 8 packs. And if she has 8 packs and each pack has 6 pencils in it, that's a total of 48 pencils that have already been taken care of. Well, she has 50 pencils, so this remainder 2 is 2 pencils that have not been taken care of. In other words, these 2 pencils are not in packs. And it says how many packs does she need to give each student 2? Well, right now she's only purchased 48 pencils according to having 8 packs. Well, if she needs 50 pencils, she's going to have to buy a whole nother box of pencils, a whole nother pack of pencils, because she still needs 2 more pencils to supply her students with pencils. So even though each pack has 6 pencils in it, let's say here's the pack and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in it, she's just going to need 2 of them, but she's going to have to buy this whole entire pack to get those 2. So she's going to have to add an additional pack to her 8 packs. So she's going to have to round it, meaning that her quotient is going to be bumped up by 1. So her answer is that she's going to need 9 packs. Now, yes, buying 9 packs, she's going to get a lot more than 50 pencils. She's going to get 54 pencils, but that is enough pencils for 50 pencils. That will supply all of our students with 2 pencils each. Whereas only 8 packs would only get 48 pencils, and so not all students would get 2 pencils each. All right, let's look at number 2. It says 76 senior students, and I wanted you to think about this as 76 with a hyphen. 76 senior students are waiting to travel to a convention center for their prom. A shuttle bus can take 5 students at a time. How many trips will the shuttle bus need to take? So there's 76 kids, and they're going to be split into shuttle buses, and every shuttle bus can take 5 students at a time. So I'm going to put my dividend on the inside, my divisor on the outside, and here I'm going to use the does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? And the basic meanings of each one of these letters is that D stands for division, M stands for multiply, S stands for subtract, C stands for check, and B stands for bring down. So let's go through these steps. How many 5s go into 7? That's step D, dividing. How many groups of 5 can I make out of 7? And that is 1 group. So then I'm going to move on to multiply. 5 times 1 is equal to 5. Now I'm going to move on to the third step, which is subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. My check step is to make sure that difference that I just created is less than my divisor. And it is. So I'm going to answer yes to my check, meaning that I can move on to bring down. So I'm going to bring down my 6. And now I'm going to go back to the D step. So I'm going to ask myself, how many 5s can go into 26? Or how many groups of 5 can I make out of 26? And that is 5. 5 times 5, which is the M step, is 25. I'm on the S step, so I'm going to subtract 26 minus 25, which is 1. 1 is less than 5, so I can move on to the bring down. Well, there's nothing to bring down, and so that basically tells me that my answer to this is a quotient of 15 and a remainder of 1. And I know that this is my remainder because this is less than my divisor. So I get 15 remainder 1. So let's try and figure out what that exactly means. I want to know how many trips will the shuttle bus need to take to get all these kids. And this basically means that I would need 15 trips to take care of these kids, and these 15 trips will have 5 students on the bus at a time. Well, 15 times 5, just letting you know, just to figure out how many kids that actually is 75 kids that will be able to take the bus. And that these 15 trips are full. So that means that this remainder 1 means that there's this kid who's just standing there who was not able to get on the bus. And that basically means that since he wasn't able to get on the bus, they're going to have to add an additional trip, meaning 16 trips, so 1 more than 15, so that that last kid can actually get on the bus. Now that kid is going to be on the bus by himself because it says it can take 5 students at a time. It can't take 6 students, so he can't go on the 15th trip. They're going to have to send the bus back just to pick up that 1 kid. He's going to be all alone. But this is a rounded problem yet again. So since I'm rounding it, I'm going to add 1 to my quotient, meaning that there are 16 trips that the shuttle is going to need to take. And our final question on the quiz, taking a look at that really quickly, says Jefferson and 5 friends have started a lawn mowing company. Notice Jefferson and 5 friends is a total of 6 people. And they have earned $357. And so they want to know, if they split the money evenly, how much money will each person receive? So 357 divided by 6 is my division problem. So I'm going to use the forgiving strategy here. 6 times, and I'm going to have to think of something using the quick trick. I'm just going to test, for example, 6 times 10 is 60, which is too low. 6 times 20 is 120. 6 times 30 is 180. 6 times 40 is 240. 6 times 50 is 300. 6 times 60 is 360, which is too high. So I'm going to have to back up to 6 times 50 and multiply 6 times 50, which is 300. Subtract, I get 57. So now I'm going to say, okay, 6 times what gives me something close to 57 without going over? I know that 6 times 9 gives me 54. So I subtract, I get a remainder of 3 and a quotient of 59. So 59, remainder 3. So let's talk about what that means. That means that each kid gets $59, but there's a remainder of $3. Now, if you want to split the money evenly, you have to make sure that every kid gets the same amount of money. Well, there's $3 left over, and you can think of it like this. Here's $3. And let's say 2 kids can split the first dollar, 2 kids can split this dollar, and 2 kids can split the last dollar. That means that each kid essentially gets 50 cents, because these 2 kids get 50 cents, these 2 kids, and these 2 kids get 50 cents. And 50 cents 6 times is $3. So I'm going to share this remainder, meaning that every kid is going to get $59, but 50 cents as well. So that $3 has been split or shared into 6 different kids. And the only way to do that is that each kid gets 50 cents extra. So $59.50 is the correct answer here. Alright, let's wrap this video up by taking one last look at our riddle. The only hint I'm going to give you here is that the answer is not pink. Good luck.